Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating source material. It's proposing an answer, really, to maybe the biggest question in theology.
Right, what you say.
How can you have eternal free will, but at the same time absolutely guarantee that the possibility of offense, sin, crime is just gone, completely eradicated from everyone?
That's the huge challenge, isn't it? And these sources, they really tackle it head on. They lay out this very structured, step-by-step kind of roadmap.
Roadmap, yeah.
And the argument is that this eternal obedience, this love, it isn't forced. It's not like pre-programming.
No.
It comes about through this necessary cosmic process, something that has to be shown, demonstrated, proven, really, verifiable.
So our mission today isn't just looking at the end result, eternal perfection. It's the how and the why. We're tracing this whole journey from that first moment of disobedience
All the way through.
all the way to this future state where the actual will to do wrong just doesn't exist anymore. It's retired permanently.
And the source material is very clear on this point. The goal isn't just forgiveness, so that's part of it.
Right.
It's a fundamental change in the nature of existence itself.
That's a huge claim.
It is.
Yeah.
And the goal is kind of twofold. First, like you said, meticulously get rid of any remaining possibility of offense in humans, angels, everyone.
Okay.
But second, and this is maybe even deeper, is making sure every single created mind gets it. Truly understands, based on undeniable evidence, that real happiness, real peace, it's only possible under the rule of love, under the commandment.
It has to become like an ontological truth for them, something baked into their being.
Exactly. Baked in. And that distinction you made earlier is so important. This isn't about just mandating perfection.
No, it's earned, confirmed.
Right. And the sources insist, this realization. It can't just be taught in a lecture or a sermon. It has to be proven through, often devastating experience.
And crucially, through seeing others succeed.
Through the undeniable witness of others. Yeah. So let's start there. This idea of learning through tragedy. Okay, so the first phase in this roadmap, it's all about showing the failure state, like catastrophically. Created beings can't just be told, don't disobey. They have to see it firsthand. They need to observe the total systemic decay that happens when that foundational commandment, the law of love, just collapses.
And the sources have a name for this.
They do. They call it witnessing the atrocity of Hades.
Wow. That phrase alone.
Yeah.
It carries a lot of weight. What does that mean exactly? It sounds bigger than just individual people suffering.
Oh, it is. It's presented as a total breakdown of the very laws that govern life. A complete disintegration.
Okay.
The document points to specific scripture to flesh this out. Hosea chapter 4, verse 1 is a key one. It paints this picture of the land.
Meaning everything. Society, nature.
Yeah, the whole environment. It's in constant dispute, constant strife. And why? Because three essential things are missing.
Which are?
Truth.
Yeah.
Mercy.
Yeah.
And any real knowledge of God.
And if those are gone, what rushes in to fill that vacuum?
Chaos. Just pure chaos. The scripture says only cursing, lying, murder, stealing, adultery. They fill the void. Violence just escalates.
Then there's that terrifying phrase.
Blood touches blood.
Yeah. That sums it up. It's not just, isolated incidents. It's this escalating nonstop wave of anarchy. One crime sparks the next, and it creates this awful self-feeding cycle of violence and suffering.
So the beings, they watch this cycle.
They watch it unfold across history, and they finally make the connection. This horror, this endless cycle, it tracks right back to that initial failure, the failure to honor the law of love.
So the big lesson is, ditching the commandment doesn't equal freedom. It equals total systemic breakdown.
Precisely. And the sources cleverly link this huge cosmic collapse back to a really personal, intimate failure. They bring in the story of Cain and Abel.
Right, the first murder.
Exactly. It connects the macro-level atrocity, this Hades, to the micro-level failure, the failure to manage your own will, your own impulses. Genesis 4, verse 7 is used as the warning here. The sin crouching at the door bit.
That's the one. If you fail to do well, fail to master those negative urges, sin isn't just a possibility. It's actively waiting, crouching at your door, ready to pounce.
But if you don't master it?
The inevitable result is the ultimate violation of the love commandment. Murder. Cain killing Abel. So the atrocity of Hades, in this view, is just that same dynamic multiplied millions and millions of times over.
Yeah.
Countless unmastered sins.
It's a powerful framework. And the genius of it, according to these sources, is that creation gets the full picture. They see all of cosmic history, judgment, salvation, the works.
Yes, the whole panorama. And this is where the source material really dives into that tricky paradox of divine justice and mercy.
How God can be both loving and just.
Exactly. They see God revealed completely. Exodus 34 is referenced. He is merciful, gracious, slow to anger, full of goodness and truth. Absolutely. That's essential for anyone to even consider repenting.
But there's the other side.
There has to be. The critical counterpoint, the non-negotiable part, is that God will absolutely punish the guilty. It mentions visiting the wickedness of the fathers on the children, even down 3 or 4 generations.
That's a tough verse for a lot of people. Visiting wickedness on generations. How does the source interpret that in this context of ending offense?
Well, the interpretation here isn't about arbitrary punishment of the innocent. It's about demonstrating the full scope, the comprehensiveness of justice.
Okay.
It proves that sin has real, long-term consequences that ripple out through time, through space. They affect people who weren't even there for the original act.
So it stops future generations thinking sin is just a minor blip, easily contained.
Exactly. It removes that possibility. You see the full consequences.
Okay.
So this dual revelation, incredible patience and love, combined with absolute, unavoidable justice, it removes all the ambiguity about God's nature.
And it's experiencing all of this that gives them that deep understanding.
That profound understanding of what God is actually like. No more guessing.
So the goal is to shift their perception of the commandments. They stop seeing them as just arbitrary rules from some distant authority.
And start seeing them as essential, life-sustaining necessities.
Yeah.
They finally get the divine intent.
They understand why God commanded these things.
Precisely. They grasp the mind of God behind the law. The source brings up the history of rejecting the prophets here, referencing Matthew 23.
The persecution.
Yeah. Creation looks back and realizes, oh, those prophets weren't just nagging us with rules. They were trying to save us. Save them from the very consequences they're now seeing play out across history.
It's a complete reversal from why do I have to follow this to thank God this rule exists to protect us.
That's the shift. They realize the sheer preciousness of the commandment.
And that realization changes everything.
It's transformative. And the future state the document describes, using Isaiah 11, that's the payoff. It's the metaphor for what happens when this knowledge becomes universal.
The wolf and the lamb living together.
Right. The wolf with the lamb, the leopard with the goat, the lion eating straw like an ox. It's not just human society finding peace. The entire natural order is healed. No more harm, no more destruction anywhere.
And the source explicitly links that peace, even ecological peace, to the knowledge of the Lord. Why?
Because the breakdown, the land mourning, back in Hosea, was a direct result of the lack of truth and knowledge. So when the knowledge of the Lord, which is basically equated here with fully understanding and embracing the law of love, when that knowledge fills the earth like water covers the sea,
Then the conflict just disappears.
the conflict, the predatory nature, the suffering that was built into the flawed system, it vanishes. Because perfect knowledge, perfect understanding, according to this view, naturally leads to perfect obedience, which results in universal harmony.
Okay, so this brings us back to that psychological flip, the change in free will in affection. If they truly understand all this, they stop fighting the law.
They totally do. They've seen the alternative. They grasp the absolute necessity of the law. So now they truly love God. This isn't just compliance anymore.
It's genuine affection.
Genuine affection. The sources point to Romans 8 here. Nothing can separate them from this realized love. And crucially, that original lie, the deception that started it all.
From Genesis 3. You won't surely die.
Exactly. The lie that God's command was just him being restrictive, holding them back, trying to stop them being like him. That lie is completely extinguished. It's disproven by the hard facts of cosmic history.
And if the lie is gone, then the core goal of our deep dive, getting rid of offense that's achieved, because they just abandon the will to do it.
They abandon the will. They move beyond even the potential for it. Romans 6 says they become dead to sin.
Right.
They realize deep down that the only thing disobedience ever produces is death. But living by the commandment, which they now understand and love, that yields holiness and ultimately eternal life. Romans 6 again.
So the education through tragedy does its job.
It's complete. Disobedience just isn't a viable option anymore. It's not rational. It's not appealing. It offers nothing they want.
Okay, so Part 1 gets us to proving the necessity of the commandment through observation, through history. But, proving something is necessary is one thing. Instilling eternal, irreversible love is another. How does the source make sure this obedience isn't just driven by fear of the consequences they saw? How does it become affection?
That's the perfect transition, because that's exactly where the core mechanism comes in. The cross.
Right.
This is the absolute pivot point in the whole process. The sources identify the cross of the second God as the central event, the confirmation, the thing that shifts necessary compliance into this compelling, irresistible, irreversible love.
Okay, before we jump into the cross itself, the sources use this term, second God. Just for clarity, for listeners maybe not familiar with this specific framework, can you quickly explain that distinction? First God, second God.
Sure, happy to. It's important for understanding this model.
Yeah.
In this roadmap, the first God is portrayed as the ultimate source, the foundational being, the origin of law, sort of untouchable, beyond direct interaction within creation in a certain sense.
Okay, the absolute foundation.
Exactly. The second God, who is identified as the Son, the Christ figure, is the active agent, the one who carries out creation, administration, and crucially for this discussion, redemption.
The bridge.
The bridge, the interface, the physical manifestation. The one who can actually demonstrate the abstract qualities of the first God, like love and justice, within the created reality of space and time.
And that distinction matters because
the ultimate demonstration of love required a personal sacrifice and interaction with death that the foundational first God, by definition in this model, couldn't undergo directly within creation. The second God could.
Got it. Okay, so the cross of the second God is where abstract love becomes concrete proof.
The ultimate proof,
Yeah.
undeniable. Romans 5 verse 8 is the key text cited. Christ died for the ungodly while we were still sinners.
Still enemies, essentially.
Still enemies. That act just removes any possible doubt about God's motive. It wasn't about getting something back. It was pure self-giving. Created beings, see that they grasp this love, this idea of sacrificing yourself for the unlovable, for your enemies. And understanding it actually causes them to love the second God in return.
That's a powerful dynamic.
Yeah.
Love sparks love.
It does. And the totally natural consequence of this returning love, it becomes easy, almost effortless, to keep the commandments.
Because you want to.
You want to please the one you love. John 14 and 1 John 5 are referenced here. If you love me, keep my commandments. Loving God means keeping his commandments. And here's the profound insight the source highlights.
What's that?
The commandments are not burdensome when they're done out of genuine love and affection.
Ah, right. The burden only exists if you're doing it out of fear or obligation or trying to earn something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you're motivated by the love you saw demonstrated on the cross, the law isn't a burden anymore. It's just a joyful way to express that relationship.
This leads perfectly into the idea of the love commandment fulfilling the whole law. It shifts the focus from, a huge list of do's and don'ts.
To one single overarching principle.
Yes.
Yes. Mark chapter 12 is the touchstone. Love the Lord your God with everything you have and love your neighbor as yourself. There's no greater commandment than these.
Simple but profound.
And Romans 13 explains the outcome.
Yeah.
Love is the completion, the fulfillment of the law. Why? Because love does no harm to a neighbor.
Right. If you truly love your neighbor, you're not going to murder them, steal from them, lie about them, covet what they have.
Exactly. Love automatically takes care of all the negative thou shalt nots because it embraces the positive action of caring for them.
So the law isn't thrown out or canceled, it's perfected, it's fulfilled in love. But what's the engine? What's the internal driving force that makes sure this fulfillment sticks? That ensures offense won't creep back in later.
According to the sources, it's the relentless internal compulsion of the love of Christ.
Compulsion, that's a strong word.
It is. The source cites 2 Corinthians 5. The love of Christ compels us, because those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and rose again.
So it's like an internal governor.
It's more than a governor. It's the new operating system. This is the existential tipping point. Their old motivation, maybe self-interest, self-preservation, even self-righteous rule-keeping it, gets completely replaced by this irreversible devotion. Their core identity changes. Galatians 2 is referenced, I have been crucified with Christ.
It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me.
That's the one. Their very self is redefined by this love.
So the cross doesn't just offer forgiveness, it fundamentally rewrites who you are. But okay, this powerful mechanism of love, it also leads directly to what the sources call the great separation.
Yes.
If the cross is the ultimate proof, the ultimate demonstration, then how a being responds to it becomes the deciding factor for their eternal destiny.
It functions as the ultimate cosmic sorting mechanism, the dividing line. On one side, you have those who see the cross and accept this ultimate proof of love.
They embrace it.
They embrace it. The document says this leads them to absolute submission to the second God. Not forced submission, but willing submission, born of love and gratitude. And this submission guarantees they will never sin again. They achieve eternal life. 1 John 3 is cited. We know we've passed from death to life because we love the brethren. Love is the marker.
But there's the other side. The flip side is harsh. If the goal is truly getting rid of even the possibility of offense, the source seems to demand an equally final outcome for those who reject the proof.
It does. Those who look at the cross, see the love, understand the implications, and still reject it. They fall on the other side of the line. They refuse to submit to this new operating principle of love.
And how does the source describe that rejection?
It's described quite vividly. By rejecting the love and the principle demonstrated, they are, in essence, participating in the act of killing God on the cross. They're choosing the principle of self-will over demonstrated love, even when faced with the ultimate evidence.
I have to push on this a bit because it seems like a tension. Given the whole focus on love, this mechanism of compelling love, why does the source insist on such a final dramatic separation? The lake of fire, referencing John 3. Doesn't that kind of judgment potentially undermine the very idea of unconditional love, even if you argue it's necessary for justice? That's a common critique.
It's the ultimate tension, and this source material is definitely trying to resolve it within its framework. The argument presented is that this final judgment isn't arbitrary punishment inflicted by an angry God.
What is it then?
It's presented as the logical, unavoidable consequence of a being freely choosing non-submission, even after the truth has been irrefutably proven. Because the cross provides the verifiable proof of God's goodness, proof of the law's necessity and its basis in love. Rejecting that becomes the final, absolute statement. It's a statement that that being is fundamentally incompatible with the perfected cosmos.
So their fate confirms the requirement that only those operating under the compulsion of love, whose free will is now aligned with that love, can exist in the new reality.
That's the argument. The rejection itself is the final offense, because it rejects the proven foundation of the future reality. The lake of fire, in this interpretation, represents the permanent annihilation of the possibility of offense, achieved by removing those beings whose will remains irrevocably set against the verified truth of the love commandment.
That framing makes it feel less like simple punishment and more like a necessary, almost surgical removal, excising the element that refuses to harmonize, ensuring the stability of the whole system.
A surgical excision needed for eternal cosmic stability. That captures the source's perspective well. It's the permanent removal of irreconcilable doubt and rebellion. Okay, now we get to what I think is maybe the most unique part of this whole roadmap. Philosophically, it feels utterly necessary. It's the proof of feasibility.
Feasibility, meaning?
Meaning, is the commandment actually doable? We've established why it's necessary. That was part one, learning from tragedy. We've established the motivating force, the love generated by the cross. That was part two. But for the eradication of offense to be absolute, final, unquestionable, every created being needs to know, deep in their core, without a single shred of doubt, that the commandment is actually keepable. By beings like them, by flesh and blood.
Because even after seeing the cross, someone might still think, well, yeah, okay, that was the second God, he could do it. But I'm just a created being. I'm weak. The standard's impossibly high for me.
Exactly, that lingering doubt, that little voice saying, it's a beautiful ideal, but it's impossible in practice. God is asking too much.
Yeah.
That doubt, however small, could still contain the seed of future offense.
So that doubt has to be completely eradicated too.
Completely. And this is where the witnesses, the martyrs, become absolutely crucial. The process starts, as we said, with the love of God confirmed by the cross. This empowers the saints, those who receive forgiveness through the second God's blood, and importantly, they are indwelt by the Holy Spirit.
Okay, empowered by the blood and the Spirit, and this empowerment leads them to the ultimate test.
It leads them to the ultimate demonstration. Martyrdom. They face the choice, compromise the commandment of love God, love neighbor, refuse idolatry, etc., or face death.
And they choose death.
They choose death. Empowered by the blood and the Spirit, they suffer martyrdom. The source points heavily to Revelation 12. They conquered him, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And here's the key part. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death.
They proved the commandment was more important than their own survival.
That's the peak demonstration of love in action. Their fidelity was proven. They showed the supremacy of the love commandment over the basic instinct of self-preservation.
Okay, so martyrdom proves their intent. It proves their love was genuine, willing to pay the ultimate price. But how does their death prove the feasibility of the law to everyone else watching throughout history.
This is where the logic about the first resurrection comes in. It's quite brilliant, according to the source. Think about the basic equation it sets up. Premise 1. The law demands perfect love for God and neighbor. Premise 2. The consequence, the wages, of failing that law, sin, is death. Romans 6 again.
Right, sin leads to death.
Therefore, logically, if a created being perfectly keeps the law of love, if they operate entirely outside of sin, then death should have no ultimate claim on them. They should conquer death itself.
Because death is the consequence of sin, and they didn't sin.
Or rather, their perfect love, culminating in laying down their life, which John 15 calls the greatest love, fulfills the law so completely that it overcomes the power of death introduced by sin.
So the victory isn't just about surviving death somehow. It's about proving death had no rightful ultimate hold on them because they fulfilled the law that leads to life.
Precisely. So when these martyred saints are raised in the first resurrection,
Which the source links to 1 Corinthians 15, the corruptible putting on incorruptibility.
exactly, that physical, verifiable event, their resurrection, becomes the undeniable, tangible proof. Proof that sin was conquered, proof that death was overcome. And crucially, it was overcome by a created being just like them.
Not just by the second God.
Not just by the second God, by their peers. Their resurrection validates the absolute truthfulness and, critically, the feasibility of the commandment. The standard is achievable. God wasn't asking the impossible.
Wow, okay, that closes the loop. That's the final piece needed to extinguish all doubt.
That's the argument. If your own kind, ordinary created beings, proved the law was keepable by literally conquering death through obedience and love, then every excuse, every rationalization, every lingering doubt about whether God's command was fair or achievable, it just evaporates.
For everyone else watching, humans, angels, everyone.
Everyone. Because the foundation of offense ultimately is always tied to doubt. Doubting God's goodness, doubting his fairness, doubting the possibility of success.
And once that feasibility is proven by the resurrected witnesses?
Those doubts are gone. Rationally, emotionally, they're extinguished. The sources link this directly to Ephesians 3, revealing the mystery, and 1 John 4. Perfect love casts out fear.
And doubt is a form of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment.
Exactly. That fear is banished because the possibility of success, the feasibility, is no longer theoretical. It's right there, proven by the resurrected saints who ran the race and won.
Now, the source material calls this moment the completion of free will. That seems counterintuitive. How does removing doubt complete free will? Wouldn't doubt be part of choosing?
That's a great question. The perspective here is that free will up until this point was actually incomplete. Why? Because it was operating based on incomplete information, susceptibility to lies, and plagued by rational doubt.
Okay.
Once the truth of God's love is proven by the cross, and the feasibility of his commandment is proven by the resurrection, then free will operates with full knowledge. The choice is no longer clouded by uncertainty or fear of impossibility.
So they are making a choice based on absolute, verified reality, not speculation or blind faith.
Precisely. Their will is perfected because it aligns itself with the proven truth, freely and without reservation. They choose to love God eternally, not out of ignorance or coercion, but based on irrefutable evidence. Future offense becomes logically and emotionally impossible because the grounds for it, doubt, have been removed.
Okay, that makes sense within the framework. Now, let's tackle that really challenging theological claim you flagged earlier. The source says the first resurrection is the starting point of the atonement. How does that work? Isn't atonement usually seen as completed at the cross?
That's the traditional view, yes. This source offers a different, expanded perspective, drawing heavily on the imagery of the Old Testament Day of Atonement, Leviticus 16.
Where the high priest went into the most holy place.
Right. And crucially, he made atonement not just for the people, but for the sanctuary itself, the tabernacle, the altar, because they had been defiled by being in the midst of the Israelites' uncleanness and rebellion.
Okay, so atonement for the place as well as the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the source argues, yes, the cross provided the blood sacrifice. That cleansed the individual sin of everyone who believes. That's the atonement for the people.
But there's more.
But the final, full cleansing, the atonement for the sanctuary, which symbolizes the entire cosmos, the whole structure of reality that requires something else. It requires removing the stain of doubt about the lawgiver himself.
The doubt introduced by Adam's sin, the idea that God's command was unfair or restrictive.
Precisely. That accusation lingering in the very fabric of creation. So the full cosmic atonement, the complete cleansing, needs more than just payment for sins committed. It needs absolute proof, absolute verification that the law itself was good, just and achievable all along.
And the resurrected martyrs provide that verification.
They are the living, or rather, resurrected proof. Their victory validates the lawgiver and his law. This validation is what starts the final phase of cosmic atonement, the cleansing of the sanctuary itself. It allows the process to move forward towards its conclusion, which involves burning away the old, stained creation and establishing the new heaven and new earth.
So the martyrs are like the necessary ingredient that allows the final reconciliation to happen, making it universally accepted, not just by humans, but by angels too.
That's the idea. The angels, remember, also witnessed the fall, the doubt, the chaos. They see these created beings succeed where others failed. They see the law validated. Revelation 12 and 16 are mentioned. The accuser is thrown down. The angels declare God's judgments are just and true. Why? Because the case is closed. The justice and the love of God have been irrefutably proven by the saints who conquered death through faithfulness. All grounds for accusation are gone.
Okay, so we've explored the mechanism, the tragedy, the cross, the resurrection proving feasibility. Now let's shift gears and place all of this within the timeline the sources propose, because they're very specific about this fitting into a 7,000-year cosmic history.
Yes, the chronology is quite central to the argument. It's structured around this cyclical idea that one day of creation's work corresponds to 1,000 years of human history.
Based on that verse in 2 Peter, with the Lord one day is as 1,000 years.
And 1,000 years is one day, exactly, 2 Peter 3.8. This framework allows the narrative to map historical events and prophetic fulfillments onto these 1,000-year days.
And where are we now, according to this timeline?
The document asserts that, as of our current time, we are nearing the very end of the 6,000 years since Adam's creation. We're at the twilight of the sixth day.
And the end of this sixth day isn't depicted as a quiet fade-out, is it? It's supposed to be a period of intense activity.
Extremely intense. And there's a fascinating parallel drawn with the original creation week in Genesis. Well, think about the original sixth day in Genesis 1. What did God create? Livestock, creatures, and crucially, the image of God, humans.
Okay.
So at the end of the sixth day of history, the sources describe a parallel surge of activity. On the one hand, you see this climactic rise of the forces of disobedience. Satan unleashes the beast power described in Revelation 13 as rising from the sea and the earth. This represents organized, global rebellion against God's law.
The peak of opposition and the constructive parallel, the image of God part.
Simultaneously, you see the emergence of the true images of God. These are the individuals who stand firm during this final test. They refuse the mark of the beast, they spiritually rule over the beast system by resisting it, and many of them ultimately suffer martyrdom.
So this end time period is the final crucible, where the last witnesses are made.
It's the final great confrontation, where created beings, empowered by the Spirit as we discussed, provide that last necessary batch of witnesses whose resurrection will prove feasibility.
Which means, chronologically, the full number of these martyrs has to be reached before we can transition to the seventh day.
That's presented as a chronological lock. Revelation 6 is emphasized, the souls under the altar crying out, being told to wait a little while longer until the full number of their fellow servants and brothers was complete. That number has to be finalized to provide the complete proof we talked about in Part 3.
And alongside the martyrs, there's another group mentioned that successfully navigates this final conflict, the first fruits.
Yes, the 144,000, described in Revelation 14 as being sealed, redeemed from mankind, following the Lamb wherever he goes.
What's their role in this end of the sixth day scenario?
They represent those who receive the fullness of the Spirit's sealing while still alive. This protects them from the beast's deception and power. They essentially become living proofs, alongside the soon-to-be resurrected martyrs, that the commandment can be kept perfectly even within the flawed flesh of the sixth day. They are prepared to witness the transition directly.
Okay, so this intense time of sealing martyrs, sealing the first fruits, it happens right up until the very end of the 6,000 years. What specific event marks the shift, the switch from day 6 to day 7?
The timing device, symbolically, is often linked to things being filled to the brim, like the water jars in John 2. When that 6,000-year measure is absolutely full, complete, that's when the last trumpet sounds. The seventh trumpet.
From 1 Corinthians 15 and Revelation 11.
Exactly. That trumpet blast is the trigger. It signals the instantaneous first resurrection of all the martyrs throughout history, and also the transformation, the glorification of those living sealed witnesses, the 144,000.
So that one sound, that trumpet, it's arguably the single most pivotal moment in the entire 7,000-year plan.
It really is. It pulls everything together, according to the source. It validates the truth and feasibility of the commandment by raising the witnesses who kept it. It simultaneously initiates the judgment phase for all the historical offenders, and crucially, it marks the beginning of the seventh day,
The 1,000-year kingdom. The millennium.
the millennium, which is presented as the great cosmic Sabbath rest, mirroring God resting on the seventh day in Genesis 2.
And what characterizes this 1,000-year period?
Primarily, the removal of the main obstacle to free will, choosing rightly, deception. Revelation 20 says Satan is bound, locked in the abyss for those 1,000 years, so he can't deceive the nations anymore.
So take the deceiver out of the equation.
And you test the hypothesis. If creation has now seen the proof, the resurrected witnesses, understands the necessity, the tragedy, is motivated by love, the cross, and D, the primary source of lies is removed, will they choose righteousness?
And the answer during the millennium is?
Overwhelmingly, yes. It allows the reign of righteousness foretold in places like Isaiah 32 to become a global reality. With the knowledge of the law's feasibility firmly established and external deception removed, human choice and governance operate on a completely different basis. Offense becomes incredibly rare.
But the source is clear this piece isn't quite the final state, or at least it's contingent on Satan being bound.
Right. It's presented as a period of near-perfect peace. But there's one final test needed to prove the irreversibility of the change.
The brief release of Satan at the end.
Exactly. Revelation 20 describes Satan being let loose for a short time, right at the end of the 1,000 years. This serves as a final confirmation. Does the commitment to love, now grounded in millennia of experience and knowledge, hold firm even when faced with renewed, concentrated deception?
And for the faithful, it does.
For the faithful, it proves their perfected free will is indeed irreversible, but also serves to gather together any remaining potential for rebellion for a final, swift judgment.
Okay, so after the millennium, after that brief final test and the judgment that follows, we finally arrive at the absolute, permanent state, final cosmic harmony, the complete end of any possibility of offense.
This is the definitive closing of the circle, the end of the 7,000-year cycle. The second God returns, and this return involves a profound act of renewal. Isaiah 65 is often cited. Behold, I will create new heavens and a new earth. The first heaven and first earth are passed away, often described poetically as being consumed by fire.
So it's not just fixing the old system, it's a replacement, a necessary cleansing.
A necessary cleansing and replacement. The idea is that the old creation was intrinsically linked to the history of sin, rebellion, and death. It carries the stain. To achieve eternal perfection, you need a new substrate, a new environment physically incapable of supporting decay or offense.
And this new heaven and new earth are then ruled by the second God in absolute righteousness, reflecting Isaiah 32 again.
Right. It's the ultimate completion of the creative act. The flawed prototype is replaced by the perfected eternal model. The source argues this physical change is crucial because offense wasn't just a moral problem, it was tied into the very structure of space-time in the first creation.
Which leads directly to the final permanent removal of offense from that new space-time.
Yes. After the millennium and the final judgment associated with the Great White Throne, the very structures that enabled sin or contained its consequences are dealt with.
Death in Hades.
Death and Hades, representing both the consequence of sin and the repository of the unrighteous dead, are themselves judged and cast into the lake of fire. Revelation 20 calls this the second death, meaning the final irreversible removal of death itself and the state of separation caused by sin. The possibility of offense is purged from existence because its ultimate consequence and the rebellious wills that chose it are permanently removed from the new reality.
And the description of that final state, it sounds like the very definition of peace. Revelation 21 stuff, no more tears, no more pain.
It's the ultimate harmony. God dwelling with humanity directly.
Yeah.
All the scars of the old creation, death, mourning, crying, pain, they're gone forever. Revelation 21. The old order of things has passed away. The cosmic experiment, the 7,000-year journey, has succeeded. It produced an eternally stable, perfected reality based on love.
Which loops us back perfectly to the original mission, completing free will, establishing universal peace. The second God finishes the job, fulfills the legacy, all through that foundational commandment of love from John 13.
And this requires that final sorting we talked about. Only those whose free will has aligned with love remain. Those who submitted, who learned to love God, and crucially, love their neighbor. The source really emphasizes that the final judgment criteria, like in Matthew 25, hinge entirely on whether love was put into practice.
The sheep and the goats, based on acts of love or the lack thereof.
Exactly. The ones cast out are condemned for failing to show love. So the core operating principle of the completed reality is relational love, fully understood, fully proven, and freely chosen.
And the grand result is this total cosmic unification. The cross of the second God finally achieves peace, not just between individuals and God, but between all categories of beings, everything unified.
Colossians 1 and Ephesians 1 are key here, reconciling all things to himself, whether things on earth or things in heaven, gathering everything together under Christ. How? Because the blood of the cross did multiple things simultaneously.
It verified God's love.
Verified his love, validated his justice, cleansed the stain of Adam's sin, and then, through the resurrected witnesses, it proves the truth and feasibility of the commandment itself.
And that dual validation, proving both God's justice AD, the law's achievability, is what finally kills all doubt, for humans and angels alike.
It extinguishes the last embers of doubt. Revelation 12, the accuser having no more grounds. Revelation 16, the declaration of God's justice. The possibility of offense is gone because free will, presented with irrefutable proof of both love and feasibility, makes the irreversible choice for eternal love.
It really is an entire structure built meticulously on proof, on demonstrated, verifiable reality. Hashtag tag outro.
So just to kind of wrap up this incredibly complex journey we've traced. The core argument in these sources is that getting rid of sin permanently, the possibility of it, isn't about force. It's achieved through proof. Demonstrable, verifiable proof.
Step by step.
Step by step. First, created beings absolutely have to learn the necessity of the law by witnessing the tragedy of its absence. Then, they're compelled, drawn in, by the overwhelming proof of self-sacrificial love shown at the cross. And finally, any lingering doubt about whether it's even possible to live this way is obliterated by the first resurrection of the martyrs.
Which completes their free will.
It completes their free will because it removes any rational basis left for doubt or rebellion. And this whole vast process is deliberately situated within that specific 7,000-year cosmic timeline, ensuring the final perfected reality is stable, tested, and eternal.
It's a truly staggering narrative. History culminating in the perfection of choice based on evidence. Which leaves us, and you listening, with maybe this final thought to chew on. We've spent this time looking closely at how these sources argue the possibility of offense is eliminated through confirmed love and, crucially, proven feasibility. Doubt is cast as the enemy of that final, willing submission. So if perfect love really does cast out fear, and if proven feasibility removes doubt, what might this suggest about how you can best verify the truth or the feasibility of any really demanding principle or commitment in your own life? Is just believing it intellectually enough? Or, as this material suggests, is that true, lasting, unshakable commitment only really secured when a principle is proven to be achievable? Maybe even validated by the real-world testimony of the resurrection of those who've actually done it, especially under the toughest conditions. Something to think about.